Finally, and after 7 decades of life largely unknowing of each other, the Dutch children born of African American soldiers at the end of World War II could learn that they were not alone. Their lives had been often unresolved and confusing about who they were and who they had come from. They did not know that their fathers, who had come to help their country recover from the tyranny of Nazi occupation, had arrived under the terms of the historic American tyranny of inequality and segregation, a matter of determined policy in the U.S. military that came to Europe in 1942. Black and white soldiers would be segregated in Europe as they were in America. White soldiers would represent America to the thankful crowds. Black soldiers would drive the trucks, work the cargo, and dig the graves. Europeans were discouraged from interacting with them. European children of American soldiers were inevitable. If of white, they could blend in, but if of black, they lived at the junction of the export of American racism and European inexperience with black people. Perhaps 2,000 were born in the United Kingdom, an unknown number probably exceeding 5,000 in Germany and Austria, and a much smaller, though equally unknown number in the Limburg province of the Netherlands. The stories of 12 of them reveal both the power of racism to cross oceans, limit lives, infect human relationships, and the basic need of a person to know where and who he or she has come from. Each of them followed a sometimes difficult path, but all of them arrived at a common destination. In some cases, a child's life was as normally derived as that of everyone else, but inevitably altered. Edward Moody was a biracial young man of New Jersey, a truck driver with a quartermaster corps, and Lenny Wetzel, a young woman of Limburg. They managed to marry among friends and family against every prescription of U.S. military policy, except its ultimate ability to send him home to America, from which he would never be able to return. Their son, Ed Jr., would have a good life, though his parents would eventually drift apart in the long distance. Trudy Habit's mother could not tell her much about the young man she had met at a liberation party. Trudy could not get to a reliable childhood, in and out of homes for girls as the one who was different, at one point to some happiness at her grandparents' farm, but then taken from them to yet another Catholic orphanage and told that her race would be destined to make her sexually immoral. Like a number of the children, her profession became social work, and community activism brought her to one of the highest honors that could be received by a Dutch citizen, a knighthood for valor given by the Dutch king and presented by the mayor of her town. Maria Andres had been born in the post-war occupation of Germany and abandoned by her mother as a young girl. The orphanages were punitive, and adoption to the Netherlands, prompted by this picture in a magazine ad, led to psychological and sexual abuse. Always searching for her father, she found a brother she has only talked to, though never met, but a welcoming family in Florida at her father's grave in Orlando. She told him that she wished he had known her. Just one of the children had been able to learn her father's identity and to form a relationship with him that created a true international family, that of Elsgard Seelers in the Netherlands and Henry Van Landingham in the United States. Hugh Scheppers would never know of his father, but he would honor his American origins. With others, some of his first years were spent in a Catholic orphanage that would become notorious for sexual abuse, so he became a social worker. He married into a family that loved him, a wife who would care for him even after they could no longer stay married, children who would honor his memory years after his death. Hugh wanted to go to America to find his father, but the thought of the journey perplexed him. He had an American flag and flew it each Martin Luther King Day, and it would be draped across his coffin on that same date in 2016. But through quiet determination, Hugh would become the catalyst for the discovery of many of the Dutch children of African American liberators of each other, and the forming of a common bond among them. An oral history project formed the basis for the book about the children by Mieke Kirkels, and in the process they were able to learn and understand the nature and history of the lives their fathers had lived in America as the context for their own lives in post-war Europe. Dutch Children of African American Liberators by Mieke Kirkels and Dickon extends the scope of that book into the full history of race in America and the U.S. military, and in the extent of its reach across an ocean and decades of the passing of time.